Thank you very much to Hong Kong AAA for welcoming us here today. We've heard already from two very significant venues, and then a little example from one artist example, and now we're going to hear from producing agents. So from the venue to the artist, now to the connectors between the artists and the venues, our agents here today. In the audience, I'm curious, how many in the audience consider yourselves agents or producing agents? Show of hands. Not that many, I'm surprised. Okay. And how many consider yourselves artists? Exactly, there you go. And everybody should consider themselves connecting agents, and we'll learn why. And then everybody else, I guess our other, yeah, we'll do a survey later. I did not allow our distinguished panelists today to prepare PowerPoints for you because I wanted to dive right into the conversation so that we can extend the last 2 days of workshops that I know many of you have participated in so that we can have some takeaways of what exactly it takes to cross blue oceans, as our center is called. So first I want to ask Rafi. His bio and Wen Wen's bio are in the program, so we won't spend any time. But one interesting fact about both of them, Rafi is part of HarrisonParrott, is part of a very large global enterprise that has an established reputation and quite a background and history of touring. Wen Wen is an entrepreneur who started her own organization in 2011. Now, they both tour artists all over the world, but one is an entrepreneur running her own organization, which I think might be relevant to some of you. I know some of you in here who didn't raise your hand are interested in starting your own organizations to tour work, whereas Rafi has been able to take an established brand to new markets and to new partnerships, which he'll be able to share. First, I want to hear from you guys, why should we tour? Why are we crossing these oceans to begin with? There's a microphone right there.
Thank you, Alison. I guess, actually, the Actors Company gave a very good presentation and touched on a lot of subjects about why to tour. But actually, I wanted to share about a writer called Simon Sinek, who always started, as it's a very popular, actually, TED Talk, actually, called Start With Why. And which we all know actually what we are doing, what we are offering, and we all know how we're doing it, but we don't spend too much time into thinking why we are doing it. And I think it's not just for touring, but for organizations too, actually delving very deep into what is our purpose and what is our motivation is very important. And that actually translates to touring. I suppose there is so many number of reasons of why we tour, and everybody will
just
have
pick one.
Different.
Your
just
reason.
pick one. Well, actually, I want to give an example because I didn't realize my photo will be there, very big. And actually, that's taken from at the end of a tour that I made after 4 years of working on it in Stockholm, and I'm really happy, as you can see. And it's basically the tour we've done is actually combined a lot of factors, and it had artistic reasons, political reasons, social reasons, commercial reasons. But it's the tour that we work with an artist, a conductor called Paavo Järvi from Estonia, who actually I thought it's relevant because they have some identity issues as well at the moment because of the changing borders with Russia. And about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, they came to us. There was a small festival in a seaside town called Pärnu that had a small festival, but very enterprising festival. And decided it brought together best Estonian musicians, but also best musicians that Maestro Paavo Järvi used to work with. And they decided purely from artistic reasons to start with to create an orchestra there. And then when this year actually Estonia celebrated the 100th anniversary of their independence, and with a vision to come to the Estonia 100, they wanted to create an international brand. So then he called us, hey, I have this idea that I want to create this orchestra. And then we brought in the government, we brought in sponsors, we brought in individuals to support this vision. And at the end of this, we created a wonderful orchestra that then went not only from Pärnu but abroad. And it had a social mission, it had a political mission, it had an artistic mission. And this year, actually, this summer, we went to BBC Proms and also to Hamburg. And next year, we're going to Japan for a 6-concert tour. And initially, the government had supported us for 3 years, but they decided to sponsor us for another 3, and also the individuals. So I just wanted to give that there's not one reason, but many reasons, and you should combine them all together, actually, as a grand, bigger picture strategic vision.
Thank you. So the reason why to tour is multifaceted, and then that allows you different ways then to start the how. Wen Wen, a bit about why, and then we'll launch into how.
Okay, well, my reason is very personal. The reason why I would like to present more artists to the different cities in mainland China is because I think that our people, they really lack of chances, opportunity to see the very good artists. And when I grew up, we were talking about arts appreciation. In the public educational system in China, there are very, very few subjects teaching people how to appreciate arts. Even though we have those courses like fine arts and music, sometimes the mathematics and Chinese literature with English, they will occupy the time of those teaching, very limited teaching times. So I think I grew up in this kind of environment that I have very few chances to receive very good arts education. And when I came back from Hong Kong to Beijing, I realized this kind of situation didn't change much. That's why I started my own business, because I would like to show what I have seen from the world to other people. Gradually, I also realized those second-tier cities, third-tier cities in China, they have even fewer chances. And many people, they have never been to theaters or concert halls or exhibitions. So this very simple personal motivation actually motivates me from my the beginning of my career till now, that actually I share more people of what I have seen, what we have seen, and also those arts experience really inspire us and empower us with more inspirations.
So how did you begin then? Because in many ways, you really did start from zero in establishing your business. And you started first by bringing artists into China, and now you represent Chinese artists going out into the world. When we were speaking before, you talked a lot about the need for localization and marketing, which came up earlier this morning. How did those play a role in helping you build your business that crosses these oceans?
Okay. Actually, marketing is really important. I also have a speech this afternoon. I would like to talk about creative marketing, audience development, and also arts education, 3 all-in-1 model in China. It's not like the market in the European countries. When you start to do the audience development, it may take years for you to have a real arts consumers. But now in China, the market is so interesting, it's so challenging and evolving so quickly that once you do something like Mandy did, like some workshops and master classes or public talks, once you teach or lead or educate the audience with little bit arts educational activities, they will very, very quickly become an arts consumer. That's what we have done in China, also what we have discovered in this years. So we start from zero, but we also start from the zero about arts education. I think we are one of the first group of agencies in China who started to do the arts education. And I started to talk about arts education from 7 years ago. It's not only for kids, it's for everyone. Just as I just said, it's not like the kids is lacking of the arts appreciation education. Also the parents, they're maybe grandparents, they didn't have this experience in their own lifetime. So it's arts education for everyone. That's my concept from very beginning of my company. So I just tell everyone we are doing arts education for all ages, not only for your kids. When you are coming with your kids to a theater, please enjoy the show with your kids together. You're also receiving something from the artists. that also helps us grow up our business, because I mean, when we talk about family audience, that means not only 1 ticket, 2 tickets, or 3 tickets, or even more. So when we really target about family audience, we have also more possible ticket incomes from the market. And the more we do like master classes and workshops and online talks, because we have the WeChat groups, which as an application in mainland China we use every day, 24 hours without stopping. We work and we live everything on WeChat. We buy the train tickets and flight tickets, book hotels and book food, and also everything. Also the tickets for the shows on WeChat. So now we have so many WeChat groups, and the parents or the potential audience, that's a new way to form the new audience in mainland China. They're in the WeChat groups, and we do a lot of online talks and to teach them or give them some lessons how to appreciate arts. And gradually we have more audience and family audience, kids and parents, they come to theater to enjoy the show.
Rafi, you talked about, with HarrisonParrott, more of a 360-degree model where you guys are as much consultants as you are booking agents, tour producers. Tell us a little bit about what that means.
Actually, that subject is mainly related to, we always think of, and actually it was touched upon this morning as well in the earlier panels, but before actually we want to go abroad or internationally, actually the real work starts at home. And it's very important to think what we have to offer, if you like. And because actually when you're touring, the best position you can be, at least internationally, is that people come to you rather than you go to them. Actually, that's the strongest position you can be in. So a lot of the major brands or institutions, actually, they have so many offers that they cannot go. It's just, and they're not looking for it, actually. People go to them. And actually, that's the strongest position you can be. And I do believe that that it's very important to look first. You also be benchmarked, perhaps, with across the world on what's happening. Grow everything you have here, which I think Hong Kong has one of the most established cultural establishment, actually, and most vibrant, I should say. And then taking them abroad. And just
how do you do that, though? Because of course we all wish we were sitting here with people banging down our doors, you know, too many invitations to tour than we could possibly do. But you have to get there. And I know previously in mainland China there was the phenomenon of 墙外开,墙内香, that the flower that blooms outside of the wall is then famous inside, that you actually can't establish your brand at home until you have that international credibility. So you're saying the opposite, that first get the local credibility and then the world will come banging down your door.
No, actually, also local credibility, but the home market is very, very important because it's a springboard to build things from. And I think once you have an established place here and a presence here, it's a place where you can invite people, where PR or marketing material can be created, people can talk about it. Because actually in the day of the digital world at the moment, many people are thinking globally now, at least also the promoters and presenters and houses, and actually it's a big world but also a small world, and words gets around in the artistic community. So when something exciting is happening, it doesn't matter where it's coming from, actually that thing will be heard. And so I think it's important to do exciting things here as well, continue doing that, and not only just think that, okay, let's go touring and let's go international, but how can I make my thing also at home international so that the people abroad can also look into it? And then actually, once you grow abroad, it's very important to have that, not just thinking just short term actually, but a long term, to develop that over a long time, because it's actually not that easy to go on tour, because it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money. And once you go there, once you go there, it's finished in 1 week. Actually, I have a depression each time I come from tour because it's an amazing experience where you're together with so many exciting artists and people for like 1 or 2 weeks or more sometimes, and then suddenly it's gone and you're back to your real life. And it's quite something actually. So it's very important also to connect with the audiences where you go and how to keep that audience engagement with your organization. Because, again, there's a lot of competition out there too, lots of great groups and artists there. So you don't get so many chances. Or at least not that regularly. So between those 2 tours that you will go, it's very important to build up. Actually, touching on WeChat, you can create groups on WeChat about your organization and really connect to your audiences, which I'm sure you're doing. So there is a lot of opportunities there. That's what I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, we have the same post-tour depressions, for everyone. This is so normal for tour managers and artists. So I believe many also enjoy a lot of mainland China, a lot of food, and so many things to see. And when you come back home and come back to the office, you think, why I'm sitting here? We should keep touring every day. That's our feeling. Touring is really exciting. Long term, I would like to emphasize on the long-term strategy. We tour artists year by year, every year, because China is huge. I mean, even though we toured artists maybe in Beijing region this time, they are now known in Shanghai region, where they are now known in the Guangdong region. So, I mean, keep touring artists year by year and keeping more media exposure and PR exposure, marketing strategies, that's really important to increase the value of the artist. This is really important. We have some artists coming back to mainland China every year. I think this is really good strategy, also for Mandy. If you want to establish your own brand in mainland China, you should come back to mainland China every year or every 2 years. Keep coming back, because every time you come back to mainland China, you will be reported either from you or from your local promoter presenter. They will help you publicize or do more marketing on social media, on all of the media coverage. That will make people know about you, and also the world. The arts community is big in mainland China, but also, the programming people, in the circle. I just showed some of the colleagues yesterday. We have like a Shanghai International Arts Festival WeChat group. There are like 500 professionals in that group. If you're really doing good, people will just spread out the news, and they will tell each other your show is really great. So people in mainland China, they will soon know about this is a really good quality show. So if you come back very frequently, you have more exposure, you have more brand value, and I totally also believe the audience can recognize the value from the word of mouth as well. So the long-term strategy is really the way to work in mainland China. Yeah, the world.
So besides WeChat groups, you both talked about the importance of keeping that connection between the tours, because there might be a year or 2 years between each time you go back to a region or a market. Besides WeChat, what are other ways that you've done for your artists to keep that connection with local artists or local audiences in other markets?
Actually, if you have a plate, there are many examples, I should say, and I'm happy to talk it through over lunch if you would like to come. But what I would say, one thing you can do, if you have a target city or a place and creating links with an institution there, a partnerships institution that you have exchange programs, for example, and that you go there and there is, for example, there was a great example between Shanghai Symphony Orchestra and the New York Philharmonic, where they go every few years, actually, and they have like exchange programs. So the brand of that organization and vice versa is always present throughout the life of the other organization. So that's one of the ways to establish a long-term presence. The other ways, of course, is to be very present in either social media or international media, and to keep feeding the international media with your activities, so that people hear about it. I mean, and yeah, I would say those are important things. Just before I forget, there's actually live streaming actually has become a big thing where you can watch at home the performances all internationally, and you can either live or deferred stream your activities and really connect to audiences around the world, actually on a personal level. And I think that value is very big because they can keep up to date with all the activities you're doing, with the artistic things you're approaching, and so I think that would be a very important thing to do too, to continue live streaming.
Explore digital options that help. So before you even physically tour, you have digital ways to cross those blue oceans.
Exactly.
So we have about 15 minutes left, but before I open it to questions, I want to ask you guys, as agents and tour producers, for the artists who didn't raise their hand in the audience, what do you guys look for when you are choosing artists to tour, either to the mainland market or internationally?
First and foremost is quality, actually, and artistic visions, and so that would be, I think, very important. And second of all, I suppose if actually, to understand the artist, if I can deliver something to this artist, and if we match together. And
how long does that courting process take as you get to know an artist before you maybe sign them?
It can take very short and it can take very long. I think there is no one answer, because so there might be in some cases there's the tree has the flower is in bloom, if you like, and something that you want to take on. But in other cases there is something interesting there. There's a great seed, but it's just going to grow. And I think I would like to see there whether that's something I can help that seed grow or not. And actually, it's very important to be open with one another, whether that's something we can do or not.
I can see a lot of potentials from Hong Kong. I never see Hong Kong as a cultural desert. That's totally not my idea. I think Hong Kong is really rich in culture. You see, there are so many Taiwan artists now touring in mainland China, and I have been emphasizing on this point for many, many times. I hope to see more Hong Kong artists in mainland China as well. I believe any artist from Hong Kong, you can always find your niche market in mainland because the market is so big. And if every niche market means millions of maybe potential audience for you. And unless you find the right path, the right way to do all of the pre-tour work, like audience development, cultivating your own fans, and do all of the pre-marketing works. Unless you do those work really well, I believe you can find your own markets in China, because China is so big. When we talk about mainland China, there are so many different regions. You don't need to go to Beijing region. I mean, you can go to the middle, like Changsha, Wuhan, or Zhengzhou. You can go to the west, like Xi'an, Chengdu, Yan. There are all new theaters. We have around 100 new grand theaters opening every year in mainland China. There are so many new new physical space we are looking for and waiting for more contents to come in. Unless you find the right way and to enter the mainland China market, you will always find your chances, opportunities. And also, we are looking for the art. I mean, the artistic quality is really important for us. And also, because Hong Kong, we are part of the Chinese community, the social topics are really important. If your production or your company can inspire some really interesting social topics, that will really help, the local presenters find a way.
So what do you mean social topics?
I mean, not the political, I mean just social. Let's say, let me take an example. Like recently, the Chicago the musical is touring in mainland. Is going to tour in mainland China. There's a new young composer from Central Conservatory of Music. She composed something with some of the real stories happen in mainland China and make it. I mean, she used the melodies from Chicago, but just put new lyrics in that song. That really makes Chicago famous. This kind of accident, we call it accidents. I mean, this kind of accidents from some social. Also, maybe you heard about the Rainbow Choir from 彩虹合唱团 from Shanghai. They sing something in behalf of the new generation, like they don't want to get married, or they don't want to be pushed to get married. They don't want to be pushed to have babies. Something from the real life, something from our new generations. To talk about some social anxieties, just something like that. If you smartly find some points like that, that would be really helpful for the local presenters, also you, to open the new market. May
I add a practical thing, actually, as I tour also in China, but elsewhere. The business practices in every country is very different. And it's very easy to give up, actually, because it's quite hard, actually, dealing with so many different cultures. And so it's very important to keep in mind the bigger picture of what you are trying to achieve and not to give up, because in the end, you will get there. But it takes time, it takes dedication. But, I mean, when I first started working in mainland China, wow, I want to be back in Hong Kong, I said. And... But actually, I also realized there's a very big market there, and the business practices are very different everywhere, and we just have to accept that and adapt towards those.
Okay, so we have a few minutes left for questions, either about touring in mainland, touring other markets, or business choices as agents setting up their own business. Who will be the first brave person to ask a question? Yes, Duncan.
Is it working? Yeah. I just want to pick up on something you just said, not political. What are the issues when you're touring from outside into China, and let's be honest, in other parts of Asia? How do you deal with the political? Because it's a factor, it's a reality. You said yourself, it's great here, there's no issue. Cherry said there's no issue. But the reality is, if our people are going to be touring into China, how do we deal with that side of it?
Is it to me or to Wen Wen? To everyone.
I think any of us.
Okay. I mean, being political can help us and maybe sometimes can kill us too. So we have to keep ourselves safe. For doing all of the practice in mainland China. And I think our government is really helping us as a gatekeeper because, and I think they have their own criteria, not us, because if they choose not to give the permission to those artists, we don't have the chance to get a visa. So that's not going to the tour is not going to happen. So the decision is not from us. It's actually from the government. It's from every government.
Does it play into your decision making though, when you're looking at all the different performances and artists you could bring into China for both of you, because you're both bringing artists into mainland China? Is that a consideration when you're choosing? Oh, this one might be too sensitive. We might not get the permit, so let me look at this artist instead.
Yes.
Can you say more?
Yes, I think, but we don't do it from a political perspective, actually. It's still an artistic perspective. And if we believe in that, we try to offer it. But it's true that there is the real thing of the performance permit, and each artist is vetted towards that. An example, actually, something that happened in Hong Kong with conductor Vladimir Ashkenazy. Actually, he said something about mainland China, and we weren't sure if he was going to get a performance permit. And so through a lot of advocacy, we were able to get it, but it took us some time. So it is a real issue, actually, the politics. I guess we just have to be hopeful and positive about it, and take it it's not that a simple answer, actually. And it's something that we are all going to be learning together. But again, since this is about arts, I think arts should not have boundaries. That's my personal view. And arts should be the, I used this word before, but the beacon for our societies. And we should not shy away from those. That would be my personal view.
Can I add something? I mean, being political can also sometimes help us. Just I shared yesterday, and Summit Plus, we are doing our cultural exchanges with Qatar. So we are touring the orchestra from Qatar to mainland China, also touring the ballet company from Suzhou to Qatar. We won't have this kind of chance unless ever China opens the new One Belt and One Road policy, unless those two countries establish their own very good diplomatic relationships. That really, we were in the China-Brazil cultural year, and we were in the China-France cultural year, something like that. Being political can also be positive. I won't have this kind of chances unless the country really helps us open the new windows and markets. So that's I find something positive being in this kind of a big picture.
One thing I think you're both talking about is the need to know what the priorities are, because when, as you say, if the priority is something like One Belt, One Road, or a new friendship with China in another country, then there's an opportunity there because there's going to be resources, there'll be opportunities for touring. So that is something to have on your agenda. And then likewise, on the flip side of that coin is what are the other hot button topics that you might want to avoid instead of go towards. Obviously, those are harder to know. They're less black and white. There's not going to be a headline saying we're having a new China-France celebration next year, but we're not going to have a China-US, so don't do that. If only it were that simple. One thing I would add is that you do, in some ways, like you both said, that the performance permitting process is almost a safety net. You're not going to get in trouble for applying for a permit. So it never hurts to try, I think would be my advice. And in fact, you'd be surprised what is approved. In 2011 and 2013, we toured a play from the States in my previous life, all about freedom of the press and an independent judiciary. And we got all of the legal permits and everything was green lit. And it was a play entirely about issues of government censorship versus freedom of the press. So you never know, and the simple act of trying isn't going to get you in trouble.
And I don't know if I should say this, but sometimes if you are critical about politics, you can become world famous.
As well. That's a riskier option. All right, next question.
Good morning, I'm Septime, the Artistic Director of Hong Kong Ballet. And I have a question for any of you or all of you. Allison, earlier in this conversation, you talked about the importance of blooming outside the wall to be famous inside the wall. And of course, Hong Kong Ballet is both a resident company in Hong Kong that does a lot of work, wonderful work in theater settings, but also a lot of engagement work outside the theater settings. And we do a lot of work that we seeks to be pertinent and important to the lives of all different types of people in Hong Kong. We're also an ambassador for Hong Kong outside of Hong Kong. To what degree do you all have reflections or advice about how a resident company can refine the thinner slice of who they become when they tour? How, when we are on tour, or other companies represented here in Hong Kong that do tour outside, how they can retain the specialness of their DNA when they're in a city for 2 days, and how they might, in that 2-hour theater setting, plus fringe activity they build around that. How important is it for us to be all of who we are when we're on tour, and is that important?
It's very important, I think, to show who you are. And in fact, I would say that building building many stops is sometimes important, but actually sometimes small is beautiful if you have so much to offer. And finding those promoters that will believe in what you are doing, carefully selecting them, and doing longer term stints or residencies where you can showcase what you are all about. I think that's extremely valuable. So instead of thinking, let's say, a 10 performance tour or 10 performance, just 2 or 3 or even sometimes 1 large-scale residency in a key strategic location where you can invite people from all around that territory can be extremely valuable. So, it's not that easy in 1 performance or 2 performances to show truly who you are. And there will be like a great artwork. They will see it. It will stay in the memory, but they won't see what the rest is. So, and actually, when you're doing those kind of residencies, you can build again what I was alluding to before, partnerships with the local cities where you can come back and so on and so forth. So by all means, show exactly who you are to as many people as possible.
I would like to add something. I think to show who you are, presenting on a stage is really the most important way, but there are still other ways to do it. Take the example of a Cloud Gate from Taiwan. The very beginning of their touring started from mainland China. I remember Mr. Lin Huaimin, he did a lot of speeches in all of the bookstores and landmark cultural spaces in mainland China. And also there are, also Jiang Xun helped him publish something about his productions, some literatures where they also have online talks, and just to teach people how to appreciate modern dance. This is a very famous modern dance group from Taiwan. I really appreciate the way they start the mainland China market, but now if you go to see the Cloud Gate shows, every city in mainland China, it's always full house, and also the ticket can be very expensive from the black market. Like if you sell like 680, it can be like 2,000 one ticket. It's really expensive. Everyone wants to come to theater to see their shows. This is from cultural studies. It's not only from the presentation on the stage. It's from creating a knowledge about your company, about what your artistic value, core values among the audience. That is something really important. Even though you don't have the budget to do the tour every year, please come back to a market, do some small activities, outreach activities, like talks, or the meeting with the local audience, or some trainings, workshops, something like that, to increase your brand value. That's something I would like to give you as advice.
And it sounds like it has to be a tiered effect, that you kind of can't be one and done for an organization that is so multifaceted. Then it's more about how you prioritize. So if you're on a tour where you're representing Hong Kong, for example, that's going to affect what kind of repertory that you present on stage and what kinds of talks or what kinds of workshops. Whereas if you're in another scenario, you might want to showcase other rep or other activities. I think I would argue with most of the artists in this room, you all have so many things to offer. It is hard to be one and done. So it's more about knowing what that market is and then prioritizing which aspect of your identity you put forward in that particular case. We have time for one last question. Anyone from this side of the room?
The market in China, I heard the story is the government can help you to sell the ticket. For example, if you have a show in English, the English school will selling the ticket from $500 to $1,000, so you can get a full house very quick. So in this case, I would like to ask, Rafi did say the business model is very different. Yeah, I believe that. And then, so how we get into that situation? The school will helping us to sell the ticket, for 500 to 1,000, and then for all their students, especially the English school. You don't know? No. Okay. Yeah. if I have a show in China and then I organize with all the English school, special school in China, for example, in Shanghai, in the city, and then they will sell the ticket in 1,000 to 500, something like that, and then organize it. Every student need to buy the ticket. So it is very easy to get a full house.
I think maybe talk about some of the partnerships you guys have done with marketing, whether you partner with schools or with other promoters. Just a quick wrap up of the partnerships that you've built, especially in mainland China, specifically for ticketing, for sales.
Well, I guess I hope I will be able to answer your question, but it's about, I guess what you're talking about is about target groups, and it's about segmenting your audience depending on your on what you are offering. So if your project is, of course, an English-speaking performance or show, then of course you can approach English schools or other types of places. You can talk with the embassies as well. So by targeting audiences, you can have a very successful show if the show is good enough, I suppose.
Okay, I really wish this kind of situation can happen now in mainland China, because it's really difficult to approach the audience. We deal with the ticket sales directly, so we can say something. We have so many shows, performances in Beijing or Shanghai. It's very competitive. And English speaking schools, the parents, they're very selective, actually. You have to prove you're really the best quality, and you have to have so many ideas and activities for their children. Unless you show it's really worthy buying the tickets, they won't buy the tickets, okay? So it's not like we go to the English school and they will we can sell the tickets for one, just very quickly to make the whole full house. It's now happening in mainland China. It's actually, for every public show, we go to different channels, maybe 50 channels, 100 channels, and different schools and different communities to do the publicity and promotion. That's what we do in mainland China.
Thank you. All right. So it looks like the final summary from you guys, it's not one and done. It's the long game to develop the market, and the markets are large. So even one place like mainland China, if you go back 10 years in a row, there's still more to explore. And WeChat, WeChat, WeChat. Thank you both very much. Thank you.